How did Arius prove that Jesus was a created being? Arius, a Christian presbyter from the 4th century, argued that Jesus was a created being rather than being co-eternal and co-equal with God the Father. He based his argument on biblical passages and theological reasoning. Arius believed that if Jesus were truly God, then there would be no distinction between the Father and the Son, and therefore no hierarchy within the Trinity. Arius also drew upon philosophical concepts, such as the idea that God is immutable and cannot change. He argued that if Jesus were truly God, then God would have changed from being without a son to having a son, which Arius considered a contradiction. It's important to note that Arius' views were controversial and were ultimately rejected by the mainstream Christian Church. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD condemned Arianism and affirmed the orthodox belief in the divinity and co-eternity of Jesus with God the Father. Some of his main arguments were: he appealed to Proverbs 8 verses 22 to 31, where wisdom says, "The Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of long ago." He identified wisdom with the Son of God and claimed that this passage showed that the Son had a beginning and was not eternal. He cited Colossians 1 verse 15, where Christ is called the firstborn of all creation. He understood this to mean that Christ was the first creature that God made, and that he was distinct from God in nature and essence. He used John 14 verse 28, where Jesus says, "The Father is greater than I." He argued that this implied that the Father and the Son were not equal in power and glory, and that the Son was subordinate to the Father in rank and authority. He reasoned that since God is by definition indivisible, immutable, and incomprehensible, he cannot have a Son who shares his essence and attributes. He claimed that only the Father is truly God, and that the Son is a lesser being who was created by the Father's will and grace.